Hello, Crossing Church. How are you doing? Are you doing all right? Oh, that was pathetic. How are you doing, Crossing Church? That's a whole lot better. Hey, it's Saturday night. It's Saturday, and I can say that because we're live, okay? Isn't that awesome? And I want to welcome everyone from Macomb, everyone from Pittsfield. Glenn, how you doing? Can't hear him. Can't hear, but I bet they're screaming like crazy right now. How you doing, Jim? Are you tired from India? I bet you are. But I am so glad that we have the opportunity for all of our campuses to be joining with us live. And we have the opportunity to be in God's Word. And I just want to say something right now. God is good. He is good. How many of you know that? How many of you know that? Yeah, He's good. And you can trust Him. You can trust Him with your life. You can trust Him with what's going on in your life. Even if you're in the middle of a difficulty, God will see you through it. He won't leave you. He won't forsake you. And it's important to know that. Last week we talked about our attitude. That was the A in the ABCs, right? Was our attitude. And that's got to be right first. We got to be right in the heart first. God, He works from the inside out. And if it's good in your heart, if things are going on good in your heart, then you're going to be able to see that come out from your heart, emanate out from your heart into your world and into your experience and into your decisions and into your relationships. So I hope that you're tracking with us because God did something incredible last year and He's doing something incredible this year as we go through this series of the ABCs of financial freedom. And while I'm talking about that, the most expensive book you'll ever pick up for free right there. You need that. You need this book, and it's free, and if you don't have one, pick it up. It's out there in the lobby. Now, when I say it's expensive, what it's going to do is it's going to teach you about tithing. It's going to teach you about responsibility. It's going to teach you about your walk with the Lord. And you know what? It's expensive to walk with the Lord. Did you know that? What does the Lord ask of you? That's exactly right. I heard you. Everything. Is that expensive? But is it worth it? It's worth it. So I want you to pick that up. That's going to help you track through this series of sermons that we're doing this year. And some of you went through this last year, and you've experienced God in a very powerful, very personal way. And some of those testimonies we're sharing as we go through this series, and it's exciting to hear those. Today, what I want us to do is I want us to spend time in the book of Exodus chapter 1. Kind of an unlikely place to be talking about the B part of A, B, C, D. And the B stands for bondage, financial bondage, a spiritual bondage that actually comes out of that. And we're going to be talking specifically about debt. And maybe Exodus 1 might seem like an unlikely place to hear about the bondage of debt. But just bear with me and let's look at it together. We're going to start in verse 6 and we're going to read through verse 14. Some of this you're familiar with when we did the story of Joseph. It says, "Now Joseph and all of his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were fruitful and multiplied greatly and became exceedingly numerous so that the land was filled with them. Then a new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt. 'Look,' he said to his people, 'the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country.' So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor. And they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with hard labor and brick and mortar, with all kinds of work in the fields. And all their hard labor, the Egyptians used them ruthlessly." What's that have to do with debt? It has everything to do with debt. You see what happened, and you remember what happened. Many of us do because we went through this story in the story. And what happened was that Joseph was sent ahead by God because there was going to be a time of famine. It didn't look that way. Remember, he had a rough lower story, but God had an upper story that he was going to be dealing in just a powerful, miraculous way. And Joseph ended up providing for his own family even as he provided for the Egyptians in this time of famine. And so the Israelites, there's about 70 of them, came down from Canaan, and they resided in Egypt while that famine was going on. Now there's nothing wrong about that. That's just God's provision. That's just God's plan. And it's just awesome to see that happen. Here's the problem. They stayed. When the famine was over, they kind of liked the condo. They like the cost of utilities. I don't know what it was, but they stayed. Now, that's not the land that God called them to. He didn't call them to Egypt. He called them to their land. He called them to Canaan, right? And they should have gone back, but they got comfortable in this new place and found themselves indebted to the Egyptians. And you know what happens with debt? The things that we always expect will stay the same don't stay the same. And the thing you didn't plan on, or you didn't think about, you didn't know about, ends up coming around. And when it does, it puts you in this terrible position, which is exactly what happened to the Israelites. A new Pharaoh rose up, didn't know about Joseph. Joseph died. That whole generation died. And then this new Pharaoh, this new king, and this people, they really didn't want to deal the same way with the Israelites. And then before they know it, they're at slavery, and not just slavery, hard labor. And we're treated, the Bible's an understatement book. When it says bad, it means really, really, really bad. And so when the Bible says they were dealt with ruthlessly, what does that mean? It means horrible. Now, I don't know that anybody in this room or at any of our other locations would say, debt, love it, give me more. How many of you would say that? Man, I just love debt. I love being in debt. I love racking up those credit cards and having them over me. I love going through my budget every week and just seeing how much of that is over my head. How many of you would say, yeah? No. Nobody likes debt. We all like the stuff that debt brings into our life, but we don't like debt itself, do we? You see, what can happen with debt, it's a very dangerous thing. It can put us in a place of real danger. Like, I know that it's not what you think about when you first get into it. When you get that shiny new credit card, in the mail, and it just feels like it needs a little use. It needs to be run through that machine a couple of times. Or you get that shiny new car. You're tired of that old car that smells like Pop-Tarts and cheese sandwiches. And you want that new smell, which doesn't last very long, but you just think it will. Or you want that college experience, and it's that more expensive one that's going to put you down in debt for many years. Or you see that beautiful house and you think about how you could fit into that and how you could use that, and you come up with all these reasons why that's a good idea. And I'm not saying, and the Bible never says that debt is sin, but it does create some very potentially serious dangers in your life. And that's what I want us to talk about, and how as a Christian, for those of us that are believers, I want us to talk about how we need to deal with this situation in our lives. So let's talk about these dangers, okay? Just to have a beat on that. Number one, debt obligates you to someone other than God. Is that true? It's absolutely true. I mean, we would prefer probably having no debt to anyone except for God. But when we do go into debt, it puts us in that situation, and that can be a negative situation. You ever borrowed from family? That can be rough. There can be some really hard times that come from that because it obligates you to someone other than God. Debt, number two, debt without repayment, that's a sin. That's just a sin. It says it in Psalm 37:21. I'll read it to you. It says, "The wicked borrow and do not repay, but the righteous give generously." So there's actually two components to that. It's that it's sinful to borrow money and then not repay, obviously. But secondly, God wants you in a different position where you can be a source of blessing. The righteous give generously. And that's kind of takes me to the third thing, that debt limits your ability to bless other people. And that was always God's design. God always wanted his people to be a blessing to other people. I want you to read from the words of Moses in Deuteronomy 28. It says in verse 12, "The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of his bounty, and send rain on your land in season and to bless all the work of your hands. You will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none. The Lord will make you the head, not the tail. If you pay attention to the commands of the Lord your God that I give you this day and carefully follow them, you will always be at the top, never at the bottom." That sounds good, doesn't it? "Do not turn aside from any of the commands I give you today to the right or to the left, following other gods and serving them." See, God wanted his people to bless others. He wanted them to be a blessing to others. He wanted to use his people as a conduit of blessing, where his blessing moved through them into other people. So he wants us to be lenders instead of borrowers, givers instead of takers. Number 4, this is also a danger. Long-term debt exponentially increases the danger. You know, in the Bible, there was no debt that was allowed to be longer than 7 years. God put a limit on it just by law, by his law. No debt longer than 7 years. That would be tough for a lot of us, wouldn't it? Would be really tough. We're going, well, my house is a lot longer than that. And, but just think about what your life would be like if you applied the principles that God gave us financially to this particular area of debt. You've probably seen what amortization is, right? Amortization is when you have a debt and they front load all the interest on the front. So like you can pay for 10 years on a 30-year loan, like a third of the time, but you're only paying off a fraction of what the principal is. Because they're banking on you getting tired of the house that you're living in. They're banking on the fact that you'll get tired of the car that you're driving. And you'll end up paying interest and then interest on the next one and then interest, and you'll never get ahead. You'll always be behind. But that was never God's plan. God's plan is that we would be at the top, not at the bottom. The head, not the tail. And so that's why long-term debt can even be more of a problem, more of a danger. But you know what we do? We tend to live on the edge. Right? I would imagine that there's some of us right now that are trying this whole idea of tithing, and no sooner do we try the idea of tithing, something happens. Is that not true? Like, okay, I'm living right on the edge, but I'm going to tithe, and as soon as you tithe, the hot water heater goes out, right? Or the dryer won't work, and you go, hey, I don't have any money to fix this, so where am I going to get it from? Well, obviously God didn't bless me. He didn't take care of my water heater. We're living way too close to the edge. If a water heater goes out and you can't manage it because of where your finances are right now, you have got to admit to yourself you're in the wrong place. And when I say the wrong place, you're not in a God-honoring place. We need to be in a God-honoring place because this is not a financial issue. This is what kind of an issue? It's a lordship issue. It's whether or not he's in charge or we're in charge. It's a lordship issue. Number 5, debt can dictate your future. Think about all the things you can't do because of the decisions you made in the past with regards to debt. We don't think about that when we're in the middle of making that decision, right? But it can severely limit us, and it can severely limit us, especially in areas where God would really want to use us and make a difference through us. Number 6, it can affect your relationship with God, it can affect your marriage, and it can affect your family. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I wonder what the percentage is of the fights and arguments you have in your marriage because of money issues, because of debt issues. I wonder how that affects your family as a whole. I wonder how that can poison your relationship. Once again, I'm not saying debt is a sin, but I am saying that it's dangerous. And we need to handle that properly. I want you to watch this next video because it's a video of a couple, young married couple in Macomb, and they're going to talk about what debt was like to them, and then when they put God over it, how that changed things. So watch this.
My name is Arthur Remington. This is my lovely wife, Lacey, and we're from Macomb. We've been married, 2.5 years, and that whole time I've kind of been on this financial kick of trying to get our lives in order and paying off debt, which it was a lot. And when we went through the ABCs of financial peace, it really kind of like re-energized us as far as like, yeah, let's do this, let's get it done, let's get out of debt and be debt free. And we just got there. I really felt like, the weight of debt really meant like not being able to do what we wanted to do, or not really having some choice in what we wanted to spend our money on. And it felt like, this big, massive thing that would never go away. Like, you really never, when we first started, it really felt like it was such a big amount of debt that it would just last forever.
And I think it's easier to worry when you have that like hanging over your head, and especially like the amount that we had. But now that we don't have that, it's almost freeing.
I think just, getting refocused on being intentional about how we spend our money, and having the desire of, being more godly, and wanting our family to be more godly in the way that, not just the way that we spend money, but the way that we think about it, and how much control it has over our lives, like it doesn't, and I think that, with the ABCs of financial freedom, that's a big part of that, is that having that mindset that, our money is God's money, and we want to live for God, and so we have to give that over to Him. The biggest thing about it is someone's heart has to be in the right place. You have to be committed to doing godly things God's way.
You have to make that decision to do that, and you have to stay dedicated, and that's hard, and you have to persevere, but if you stick to it and you lean on God for that strength and that perseverance, it can obviously be done.
It's an awesome story, and you may feel the same way that they felt. Like, this is something that can never go away. But I don't think we realize just how powerful God is to move us in the direction, when we submit to His Lordship, to move us in a direction where He not only blesses us, but He blesses others through us. And we need to understand that doing God's things God's ways changes everything. I think some of us, with regards to this lordship issue, what we do is we ask the wrong question. What we're asking is like, what kind of payment can I afford? Rather than, maybe I just need to say no to that. Or maybe I need to save up for that before I do it. And I need to make sure that I have my priorities straight before I even move into that direction. There's so many different ways that we can get trapped here, whether it's deferred payments, or whether it's revolving credit, or whether it's amortization, or whether it's low interest rate credit cards, or whether it's payday loans. We can end up just like Israel in the land of Egypt, where we thought that this was going to be like this, but then it's going to be like that. Remember, ultimately, all these things are a lordship issue, because things don't stay the same. They change, and you can't control those things. And then you're in bondage. Like I said before, the Bible never calls debt a sin. As a matter of fact, I've seen where debt can be a tool that God can use to do incredible things, to even build the kingdom of God, or to build your own financial situation. I think a house can be a good thing to be in debt for because you're creating equity in that house. You have to be very smart and very careful how you do that. I think a student loan, if you're going to go to college, can be a very good thing for you to do because it's going to enable you to have bigger horizons. It'll open more doors in your life. I think that if you're leveraging debt to do a business, I think that can be good. I mean, I look at this building that we're in right now and the other buildings that we're in, and unless we had the ability to use that as a tool, there would have been a lot less that we could do. I mean, yeah, we could have been a faithful debt-free church and still be running 230 instead of 6,500. I mean, you can use debt, but it's not something that you definitely want to use a lot or definitely not, or stay in. You don't want to stay in that. You have to be smarter. We have to be smarter. You know, Jesus said that the children of this world are oftentimes wiser than the children of light. And if we as believers are children of light, we need to learn to do God's things God's ways. So here's some bondage breakers when it comes to debt. Just some real practical things for you to be thinking about in this area. And I know this is a practical sermon, but sometimes you just need that. First of all, make the commitment. I mean, you can't do anything until you make the commitment. What kind of commitment? Make the commitment to get out of debt. Say, that's what I'm going to do. Even good debt. Romans 13:8 says, let no debt remain outstanding. That means pay your debts on time. Except, listen to this, the continuing debt to love one another, for he who loves his fellow man has fulfilled the law. Number two, this might kind of blow you away, but number two is marry someone who believes the same way you do. I'm not kidding. I mean, this is something that you ought to talk about before you get married. How do you feel about this? You know, because that can be a really volatile area in your marriage. Make sure that you're not in the bondage of being unequally yoked. You know, and I know that when we say the words unequally yoked, a lot of times we think that's between believer and non-believer. But there are other areas where you need to have a common understanding of how we're going to face the world, how we're going to meet the world, how we're going to make decisions, how we're going to raise our family. And this is one very big one. Number three, refrain from acquiring any more debt. I mean, the way that you make the commitment when you say, I'm going to get out of debt, it isn't by getting more. It's by saying, I'm not going to get any more. I'm going to stop that right now, and I'm going to start this new trajectory in my life in a more positive way. Number four, put God first in your finances. Put him first. When you give God lordship in this area, Malachi chapter 3 teaches us that the storehouses of heaven are open for us, that God takes care of us. And I can't tell you how many times my Facebook or the financial freedom page or my personal emails are just blowing up with people that are sharing with me, God did this. I trusted him and God did this in my life. And it's not that God wouldn't have done it, but it's now I see who's responsible for it. Now I actually realize that it is God. That's pretty exciting. You know, the way that I do this and the way that a lot of the people on our staff do this is we do online giving and we do automatic withdrawal. Yeah, so some of you might go, well, you might have a stumbling block. If I was sitting next to you in a service and the offering plate went by and I didn't put anything in, it's because they've got access to my stuff. You know, and I want to make sure the Lord gets his before I even see it. I don't get to see it anyway. You don't know my wife. I don't run my money. So, you know, and it all belongs to the Lord anyway, and I know that it belongs to the Lord anyway, and I just love the fact, I love the fact that that's even out and it doesn't even register in my checkbook. I want you to think seriously about that. You can do that. Develop a written plan. That's number 5. Like sit down, and there's some tools in the Financial Freedom book. There are a lot of great tools out there. There's a lot of our congregations go through Financial Peace University, the Dave Ramsey tool. That's a great one to use. Just to develop a written plan that moves you in that direction. Another thing that a lot of us struggle with is a time frame. So when you do a written plan, put a time frame with it so that you can see where the end is. It's cool for me to see right now that we have completely changed as a church in this area. That there's only 11% of the church's income now that goes to debt, and that is greatly reduced from where it used to be. And our trajectory means we don't have to stop doing any ministry or slow down any ministry, and we'll be debt-free within 5 years. And that's a pretty exciting thing, because you think about how much more blessing we can be a conduit for God to use when that happens. Adjust your lifestyle. A lot of people don't want to do this, you know. I want to get out of debt, but don't mess with my cable. You know, I want to get out of debt, but I have got to have a manicure. Not me, but maybe you. I don't know. But I mean, some things we may have to adjust, and those things are not necessarily easy. But I want you to think about that. Here's another one, number 8, and this one's really important. Never negotiate with life killers. Never negotiate with life killers. What are those? Life killers are like insurance or taxes. Like some people will go, I know how I get out of debt. I'll just quit paying my insurance. Bad move. Because that can wipe you out for the rest of your life. Or I'll just cheat on my taxes. That's never going to honor God. You should always pay your taxes, and you should take care of those other areas in your life so that you don't have a life killer in your life. Don't compromise in those areas ever. Number 9, develop a system to pay off your taxes one at a time. Dave Ramsey calls this the snowball effect. And it's where you get the littlest debts and you take care of them first, and you start getting some wins. And you start seeing that these things are going away. It makes it easier to get in that car that, you know, needs a new battery. It makes it easier as you see that you're winning as you go along. Fact is, you can start this right now. You can make a plan, and God can work powerfully through it. Just because of your life situation, and I know that we all have unique life situations, it doesn't mean that these principles that God has given us don't equally apply to us. We can all do this. And we'll be so much healthier spiritually, and the lordship issue will be a more settled issue in our lives. I want you to listen to this next story. This is the Helton story.
We're the Heltons, and we live in Payson. We're members of the 48th Street campus here in Quincy. We had a big life change, and but it's been neat because you know, being a single mom, it's just me and the Lord, and He's, you know, I've learned to trust Him more so than ever before. I had tithed off and on over the years, and it just was sort of a trend. It would come, it would go in my life. And after the ABC series, I decided to make that commitment. And it was really neat because it seemed like right away I was blessed for it. It was, you know, I started writing the check, and there it went. And then it was just a neat opportunity to trust the Lord and to see what He would do. And it was neat because maybe a check would come in that I hadn't expected, or I would have an opportunity to make a little extra money by taking money at a ball game. Just little things, $20 here, and somehow it would all piece together, and that money would just come right back.
I get money every month from my grandparents for allowance, and so I started tithing 10% or maybe even all my money to God. I decided to get a purity ring, which I will stay committed to until I marry. And then I got baptized in May because, I mean, over the past couple years we've been through a lot, and just trusting God with my money and trusting God with everything, including my money, has done so much for our family.
We look at, you know, what's our best deal on anything we do, and so that's life. We coupon. We're smart, and if we don't spend money unless we have to, but we know we're taken care of. We've had times when we've gotten a bill that was higher than I would expect it to be, but now I look at it as not like taken away from my tithe isn't an option. It's just another opportunity to trust God and see, well, how are you going to do this one?
you just realize how much He has blessed you since then. I mean, my mom, at the very beginning of the year this year, she said it's going to be a really good year. And she keeps telling me that, like, almost every day. And we can already tell because things have already been happening, and we're going to make some life changes this year that hopefully will turn out for the best. And if we just keep trusting God, we know that they will.
The Lord says, test me, and it's true. If you just test Him in this one part of your life, it will be rewarding. And we're blessed, and this has made, I think tithing has made God's presence more personal, and it's made it more of a daily thing. You know, when I get that bill in the mail, I mean, it gives me an opportunity to really think on how the Lord is providing for us. So it's made His presence more real.
The world says, show me and I'll trust you, but God says, trust me and I'll show you.
Didn't that sum it up? Didn't that last statement just sum it up? I mean, that's what it means. That's what this whole thing means. You know, the world says, show me, and then I'll trust you, God. God says, trust me, and then I'll show you. And I wonder where you are in that continuum right now. I wonder what you're thinking right now. You're going, wow, this sermon is kind of like, it's all about money. And yeah, because this is right where our heart is. This is the membrane around our heart right now. That's what Jesus said. That's why He talked about it more than anything else. Because it seems like these two things are just the two rails on the same track, right? Where your treasure is, there's where your heart is. Where your heart is, your treasure is. Right? If you want to see what's important to you, what's valuable to you, look at your checkbook and your calendar. What do you spend your money on? What do you spend your time on? And what God's wanting from you isn't those things. He wants you. He wants your heart. But He knows these things run parallel to one another. And I want to give you some great news. I want to give you some incredibly great news. And that's this. If you're starting a plan, if you're starting a trajectory, the biggest red mark on that whole trajectory is a debt that you cannot repay. The biggest problem that you have, the biggest debt, you got no chance with it. No chance with it. It's the debt of sin that you owe, that I owe, that we all owe. And so when we look at whatever kind of plan we have in life, I want you to know this, that God said, you know what? The first one, the big one, the one that's bigger than everything else on that list, I'm going to take care of that one for you. I'm going to get you started on the right track. And so what He did was He sent His Son Jesus to this world. He came here and He lived here. And He taught us, and He loved us, and He healed us, and He gave everything to us, and He climbed a hill for us, and He was nailed to a cross for us, and He died on that cross for us. And they pried His dead body off of that cross, put it in a borrowed tomb, and 3 days later, He rose again. And you know what He told us before He died? He said this, paid in full. Paid in full. So now, as I come to Him, I realize that the biggest debt on my ledger has all been wiped out. Some of you are here today and you've never experienced that. I want you to be thinking hard about that right now. What a way to start a plan, to know, God, you took care of everything that's really important. And this other stuff, with your help, God, it can be accomplished. We're moving to a time of decision.